speakers for today, Mr. Jeff Sorensen, our core group member, Deepjee Singhal, Vice President Suhas, Co-Chairperson of the Internal Audit Committee, Nandita, of in the Internal Audit Committee, Atul, friends, and my online viewers. Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you to this important lecture meeting on analytics, artificial intelligence, a global perspective, the India story, #internal audit. Deepjee, usually our lecture meetings are on Wednesday, but today we've chosen Thursday, and today the date is 2002-2020. So I don't know whether this particular numerical had something with your artificial intelligence or analytics. Friends, Deepjee is associated with us since the past more than 20 years. He's part of our family, and we need not introduce our society to him. But for many non-members, our online viewers, and specifically for our this other speaker, Jeff, I would like to spend 2 minutes more, and since we've started early also, to introduce our Bombay Chartered Accountant Society to you. The Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, we have a parent body, the regulatory body, which is the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. It's a government body, and all the chartered accountants that pass have to, it's a regulatory body. But in 1949, just 6 days after the regulatory body was formed, our founders thought that there was a requirement for a particular body that would not only act as independent but also behave, and be totally independent, because there would be some restrictions on the regulatory body. So therefore, they thought of this organization, and this organization was formed as a public charitable trust. It's a non-for-profit organization, and it is the largest and the oldest voluntary organizations of chartered accountants in India. Currently, we have about 9,000 more members, 9,000 plus members. So therefore, all the work that is done in this particular society is purely on volunteers. When we have so many contributors, all faculty members, all just for the love of that. And over the past 70 years, there have not been a single election for a president. So it all comes by merit and how much time you devote to the society. So that is it. Over the past 70 years, the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society has earned a big repute, not only amongst professionals, but also in the industry. And it is known for its innovativeness, the different variety of programs and the new initiatives that they take. Basically, we are education knowledge imparting institution. Our constitution allows only chartered accountants to be members, but and our name is Bombay Chartered Accountant Society, but our reach of influence is definitely beyond the city of Bombay, and also us at the leadership want to increase our reach from beyond chartered accountants also. So even though our membership is about 9,000 plus, but we have 33,000 social media followers, and we have presence on all the four predominant social media platforms: the Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And our YouTube channel is particularly very, very, the happening YouTube. We have about, to be precise, 309 videos online, and this will be the 310th video. And we added 1,000 social media members only in the last 1 month. We had our budget meeting in the beginning of this month, where it was presence of 1,500 people, and it was viewed by more than 5,300 people online, real-time basis. So this is our reach. Our programs are also well accepted, but even our publication, our Bombay Chartered Accountancy Journal, which we just shared with you also, that is in the 51st year of continuous publication, and month on month, all voluntary basis, this publication comes out. And so the new initiatives that we have taken is keeping technology in mind, is that all our programs, like these videos, are available on the YouTube channels. You can watch it at your convenience, but also our important programs where people from outside the city cannot attend. Now we have started, selling, making available those programs on our pen drives, so they can buy the pen drives and watch it at their convenience. So this is the background of the Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. Now coming to today's lecture meeting, coincidentally, just in the month of December, I had mentioned something on technology in my president's message, and I read it. A lot has been written and said about the impact of technology on our lives. We often read about how technology will influence every aspect of our life. Technology used in a positive way leads to innovations which in turn result in improved and enhanced lifestyle and better standard of living. This improves the quality of our life, fuels investments, and if handled wisely, could even create employment and job opportunities. Technology has changed the way we live, we behave, and we interact, both at work and at home. It has changed the way we communicate, the way we entertain ourselves, and the way we seek information, and much more. On the flip side, technology has made a number of traditional jobs redundant, raising the fear that machines and automation will replace low and semi-skilled workers, and newer technologies like artificial intelligence will be threat to skilled workers. The new advancements are forcing people to continuously update their knowledge, stay relevant and productive in this competitive world. But in the midst of all these debates on the influence of technology, I was also happy to come across one article where the aircraft maker Boeing on the aircraft maker Boeing. Boeing is said to discard one of its most sophisticated automation projects by using advanced and sophisticated robot technology in building its jetliners. I have also read that the Boeing will now rely on skilled labor and skilled mechanics to carry out certain delicate operations manually. And this is so because, according to them, manual solutions have proven more reliable than the one by robots were capable of doing. This debate of man versus machine is not new and will always go on forever. But I strongly believe that human skill and emotions can never be replaced by technology. Humans will remain one up against the machines. But things have changed. I strongly believe that analytics improve the quality of audits because it gives auditors the ability to analyze large volumes of audit relevant data and thus helping him in using his judgment in coming to a conclusion whether the financial information or the financial statements is free of any material misstatement. It also throws out exceptional and uh, inconsistent results. Auditors are using newer and advanced technologies like artificial intelligence in getting their work done. I also came across an article where I have read that firms are using drones, artificial AI technology, and image recognition to verify and analyze inventory at clients' place sitting remotely. To help us navigate through the complex landscape of analytics and in artificial intelligence in the context of internal audit, we have arranged this lecture meeting today, and I personally thank both the speakers to spare their valuable time and address us today. It is a pleasure to introduce Mr. Jeff Sorensen today. Jeff holds a business degree from Denmark and also has a diploma in computer programming and analysis. Jeff has earned various certification in information technology, auditing, security from Information Systems Audit and Control Association, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and Caseware IDEA. He joined Caseware in August 2016 as a product manager for the company's flagship product, Caseware IDEA, and is now a strategic role as its industry strategy. Caseware, sorry, Caseware International Inc. is a company that sells software solutions for accounting, auditing, financial risk and governance professionals. Caseware software is used in 130 countries and is available in 16 languages. He is a certified instructor with 10 years of international consulting experience in Caseware IDEA for a variety of industries like insurance, banking, utilities, government, and online services. He has over 20 years of experience in information technology, holding positions within IT systems development, IT security, IT audit, project management, and as an IT consultant. Jeff has implemented and continuous audit monitoring, governance, risk, and control solutions for its clients in public and the private sector. Sir, you will be glad to know that the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society is associated with this IDEA software right from 2004, right? 2002. And friends, even in our office in the past so many years, our internal audit vertical has used IDEA software extensively. And now even in stat audit, we use this idea software for most of our, for all the biggest audit clients. And also more recently, since the past 3 years, we are also using your work paper caseware, and we have successfully implemented that. Now coming to Deepjee Singhal, our association with Deepjee, with IDEA, is as long as our association with Deepjee Singhal, and he's part of BCA family. Deepjee is a chartered accountant as a partner in Pipalia Singhal and Associates, and he has experience of more than 25 organization, building procedures and risk management and internal controls. He's a trainer in modern internal audit tools and techniques, risk management and internal controls in both public and private sector. He's handled many assignments both internationally and in India. He's a certified trainer of the Drucker curriculum from the Peter F. Drucker Institute of LA, USA. He's a certified entrepreneurial risk assessor trainer from ERA tool from Methodware, New Zealand. He specializes in business advisory, internal audit, risk management, helping organizations to grow more profitably with better governance and risk management processes. And as I told you, more importantly, he has been part of the BCA core group, and also he's been a co-author with the BCA publication on internal audit practical caseware, which has sold more than 1,500 copies till date. With these words, before I hand over the proceedings to both of them, I would just request our Vice President Suhas to hand over a small token of remembrance to Jeff first, and also copies of our publications. And now to Deepjee. Thank you. The floor is all yours.
Everyone hear me? Hello? Okay, I think we're good. Move this up a little bit. Excellent. Should be good. Just pop it in here. Should be okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Thank you so much for everyone welcoming me to come here and to speak to you. It's an honor, and I have to say there's sort of a habit with Deepjee is that wherever we go to present, there's always a group of very passionate people, whether it's an IDEA user group or whether it's the BCAS, and I love that because you can really level with people who have been there, who have used it, who have tried it, who take a chance, who share their knowledge. You've been partnering with IDEA for so long. That's great to see. I mean, I think of the version of IDEA in 2002. IDEA 2002, it's an old version. That's a long time, and you don't see that everywhere. So it's really nice to be among friends. Today's session is about audit analytics and AI, and there's really a lot of talk about artificial intelligence in there. So let's just get started. First, we're going to try to define artificial intelligence, and to define it is harder than you think. We're going to talk about what's happening across the world in artificial intelligence. And again, we could talk for days about what's going on in AI. I picked a very specific case study. It's something we can all relate to. And I cut together a video. I found a bunch of articles online. I researched. I got little clips. I put it together, and I edited it. It's about 3 to 4 minutes. And we'll talk about it after, but I think it's just interesting to see how far things have come, and things you wouldn't think they would automate that they do. The audit perspective, how does it impact audit? There's AI in general, but then what does it mean to our profession, which is what we all want to talk about. And then there's about audit AI in practice. Okay, so for those who are using AI today, and your president talked about that, there are definitely shops that are starting to take advantage of it. Well, how are they doing it? What are they doing? And what is the impact in their company? And then finally, how can we all get started? Or if not started, how can we sort of continue and ride the wave? So that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So first of all, let's talk about trying to define artificial intelligence. And it's interesting because if you look online for a definition of artificial intelligence, it keeps shifting. You would think there would be an explanation. What is artificial intelligence? And I think the problem is that intelligence is something that we haven't quite nailed down, right? Intelligence, so what we're really talking about is artificial intelligence is really about automating activity associated with human thinking. That's really what we're talking about. So at a high level, we mean decision making in some way, that a machine, and that's why we say automation of activity. So it's a machine that can do things that would be traditionally human. So can a machine make decisions? Can it solve problems and learn? If you have those three, you're really talking about artificial intelligence, that if a machine can do those things. So again, it's really about creating machines to do things people are traditionally better at. It's not a great definition, but it's kind of the best we have, because what happens is our world keeps shifting. Think of translation. How many of you have used Google Translate on your phone? Pretty much everyone, right? Have you noticed that it got good over the last 5 years? Like drastically better, right? And you know why, right? Because they just fed a whole bunch of translation and books and knowledge into the machine, and they just kept, the machine could learn, teach itself, and eventually it figured out what the grammar was. Just by reading enough, it could figure out what the right answers were, because we had the whole world's knowledge to feed it. So when you could give it all this information, it could start figuring out what is correct in a sentence, how to set your sentences, grammar, all those things. So now it's getting much, much better than it's ever been before. But so now people are starting to say, well, maybe translation is not really artificial intelligence because we know how to do that. So AI is a moving target. AI is about doing the things that machines aren't good at yet. That's really what we mean by artificial, because otherwise it's just a computer, right? Machine translation of languages was impossible or very poor 20 years ago. Now we kind of go, my phone can do it, anyone can do it. I talk to my little, have any of you have these Amazon Echo or the Google Home? Those things, you talk to it, well, it does things. We take it for granted. We don't even see it. But that is also artificial intelligence. It's just that, keep in mind, when people talk about AI, they really mean what hasn't quite been solved yet. Something we're close to, but we're struggling with. All right? So there's one quote here I thought was interesting. AI is the branch of computer science concerned with the automation of intelligent behavior. Intelligence is a computational ability to achieve goals in the world. Pretty high level, right? That is ultimately what we're after. So I think it's a good definition. Okay, there's a lot of text. I don't know if you can read any of this in the back. It's really for my sake. I'll talk to these. I know I didn't want to have 5 slides on it. I figured I'll just have one. You don't have to strain your eyes to read it. It's okay. Basically, when it comes to artificial intelligence, we're really talking about, there's 2 major categories that people are very interested in. There is machine learning and natural language processing. So if we start with machine learning, so basically it is by algorithms, functions, that build a mathematical model on sample data as training data to make predictions or decide without being specifically told how to perform the task. So we talked about having lots of sample data that you feed it, and the computer starts figuring out how it works. That's what machine learning, I mean, it's literally learning. The machine is learning how to do things based on a lot of mistakes, based on trial and error. Try, and eventually it figures out the rules of the game. Now within machine learning, there's really 2 categories of that. They call it unsupervised machine learning and supervised. So unsupervised really just means that you can ask the computer to look at some information, and without us having to correct it or tell it how things are working, it can get to a successful result. So in other words, there's no feedback loop. We do not go in and say, no, that was wrong. No, that's right. We just give it to the machine, and it will give you some results out. and it will tend to do the right thing because there is enough there for it to learn to teach itself. Supervised is where it runs through the file the first time, and then we have to look at the results after and go, okay, you told me these 5 mistakes were in the file, but these were actually false positives. These were actually okay. So we're going to correct that. No, that was good. That was not a mistake. That was also good, but these ones, yes, you got them right. Next time the computer goes, okay, I'm going to change my way, so if I see something looking like this again, I'm going to consider it okay. So by a lot of correction, it's going to try to learn. Go to the website, asks you to identify the number of traffic lights, and you have to click. That's kind of what that is, right? It is, tell me what I'm seeing, and it goes, oh, okay, and then it'll get better next time. But that's kind of what that is, supervised, is that we have to be there to help correct it and get it on the track. What's important to know, though, is that it's always learning. So with Case4ID as an example, we have some unsupervised machine learning. We have something called outliers, which allows you to take any transaction file, any master file, anything you have in your company, and you tell it what you're interested in. Which columns are of interest to you? Is it the pay grade? Is it the account? Is it what kind of categories are you interested in? And then put in an amount field, and it will find out if there's something unusual going on. And you don't have to teach it anything. So that's an example of unsupervised machine learning. So in other words, without you having to explain anything, it will figure out the rules of the game just by reading the files and doing it on itself. Lots of that. Okay, so the other field that's very important is natural language processing, and we're just getting started in this field. I think we've done a lot within machine learning. This is really exploding. So natural language processing, well, it is what you would expect it to be. It's linguistics, computer science, engineering, artificial intelligence, all put together to analyze large amounts of natural language data. So yes, it is learning from the data, but it's a field that, what we talk about Google Translate, where it will look at a structure of a sentence, it'll know what the verbs are, what the nouns are, it'll know what a sentence means. That's a pretty big deal, because once you know what a sentence means, that means you can extract pieces out of that sentence and change it around and rephrase. So what's starting to happen now, in fact, we have an app we're working on within Case4ID. I shouldn't probably reveal that now, but you know, you have a sense for it, is that there are ways within natural language processing where you can restate a document in new terms. So imagine you have a document, it's a page long, and you feed it through the machine and you say, summarize it for me, and it will rewrite it shorter. Okay? Not cut out, worded differently, but meaning the same thing. Pretty impressive, right? That we have not seen so far. But this is an area that is going to explode. There's going to be a lot. And what you can imagine from an analytics perspective, that means people can start looking at legal documents, emails, communication trails, and you can start to glean knowledge from written text in any language. Very powerful, right? So basically, we talk about the things that you can do here. So semantics, yeah, what is the meaning of the words? Machine translation, translate from one language to another, right, which we talked about earlier. Name entity recognition, that when you say a particular name, which could be a noun or a name, or it will know correctly whether you're talking about the place or the thing or what it is. It uses its smarts to be able to figure this out because it understands the context. This is what I was talking about, natural language generation. So you can create human language from computer databases. So you got a list of transactions, write a report on these 10 transactions. Tell me what you found, right? Natural language understanding, of course, that we know. Question answering, given a human language question, determine its answer. Sentiment analysis, there's already apps on this out there. Degree, say, is this a positive or neutral or negative statement? So let's say you have a call center and you want to try to find out what kind of service people are providing. You can technically read the recordings, turn into text, look at the sentiment, and you can get flags to say, here's some calls you should be listen to again. Check these out, or these ones all sound good. Powerful stuff, right? We're auditing things we could never audit before. And automatic summarization, we just talked about that. There's more. So those are really the two major categories. A lot is going on. Now, how they actually do this is also kind of interesting. So they talk about neural networks or artificial neural networks. So basically, in our brains, right, we have synapses, neurons, and our brain, when it learns things, when you're a kid and you try an activity and, you know, you do something, you get hurt, your brain is constantly setting, consider it zeros and ones, but essentially desirable paths and undesirable paths all the time. And eventually we learn, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this again. You know, you see your dog or your cat. I have a story about a cat. I got a cat because my kids, I have two daughters, they wanted to have a cat. But the cat is at my parents' place a lot of the time. And my cat would have a weird habit of banging its head onto the door because it would close the door at night because the cat, does anyone have cats? Anyone? No? No cats. Okay. Cats are sort of a nuisance because at night, when you're asleep, they're awake. And they want to hunt. They want to hunt mice. They want to go crazy. So if you leave the cat around you and you're trying to sleep, it'll jump up on the bed, it'll mess with you, jump all over you, and wake you up. So my parents, they said, forget it. We're going to put it in the basement, close the door. But then the cat would bang his head on the door, make a loud noise. What is this stupid thing doing? So they came up with a solution. And it's talking about this whole thing about your brain by figuring out undesirable behavior. So what they did is you can get a spray can online. My brother got this. It's a spray can with a sensor on it. It's just air, compressed air. You know, like the compressed air cans for cleaning, right? So they put that by the door, before where the door, the cat could bang its head, and they put the sensor on it, and they'd go. And then the cat would try to hit the door, and they'd go, and you'd get the air on him. And the cat would freak out, jump right up, and he would just back away from the door. Not touching that door. So the next morning, they would open the door, and the cat was like, I'm not getting near this door. And then once they opened the door and they took the can away, and then the cat's like, okay, now I'm good. But it doesn't do that anymore. So this does logic about how the brain works, right? We create these desirable and undesirable paths. And essentially, we can use this. We can actually build events, and how we structure artificial intelligence, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're building this structure where we can say what works and what doesn't, and it's very, very complex, but it is kind of how our brains work. So this is what we're starting to see. Deep learning is really where we are using neural networks, but we are also teaching it with materials. So it's kind of like what we've been doing with language processing, where we're feeding a lot of materials, but the way it records it is using a neural net. So we're sort of combining technologies that you saw on the first page and combining with neural networks on the second page. So you can see it's sort of interesting because we actually don't know how this stuff works really. We are sort of like doctors that you see a patient's doing well or not doing well, and we try this and try that, and the patient's getting better, but we don't really know inside the body necessarily how it works. We kind of know the outside of it, so it's an interesting field in that if someone wanted to ask how does it work, the neural network is huge, and it's not easy to distill into there it is. It's a giant web of zeros and ones. So we are still struggling to actually understand why it works the way it does. We know that it works. You feed it information, you store it in this way, and it tends to give you the right result. But why? We don't really know. And you'll read that online, that people are still, they're struggling to answer why something is the way it is. They're going to go, why did your AI pick this transaction? Well, we've got some numbers, and it tends to work this way, but they struggle to actually say why. So we're at the beginning of AI stuff. What deep learning has been very good at, so we talk about natural language processing, yes. And now there you're going to see speech recognition, of course, but image recognition and restoration. You're going to see a lot of image recognition, and you're going to see some solutions coming up where they combine all these things. Being able to look at a picture and know what it represents, right? Could be car driving, could be looking at a particular item, like your inventory, right? Scan an inventory, but that object could be turned upside down. How do you still recognize that it's the same object? Very, very sophisticated techniques. Drug discoveries and medical image analysis, there's much going on here. We're going to talk about some of the use cases later. And there's lots of deep learning frameworks out there that are available that you can play around with. PyTorch is getting a lot of ground. Facebook actually created it, but they opened it. So everyone can use their network. TensorFlow is Google's. Apache is an open source, MXNet. There's a whole bunch of them. Microsoft have one. And there's many of them. But they're available for people to get a test account, play around with, get a sense for how it works. I'd recommend for those who like to do a little development, they should try it. All right. So basically, at a high level, there's all these terms we talked about: AI, machine learning, deep learning. So just think about AI is very broad, right? We couldn't really define it. Machine learning is specific techniques that they use to learn, right? And deep learning is where the software uses all the techniques to train itself and stores it in a neural network. So that's basically sort of how all the big pieces come together. Now, there are a lot of challenges. We talked a little bit about the challenges that we're seeing so far. One is, remember I said that we don't really quite understand why it works the way it does. We just feed it lots of data, and it gives us what we want. But why does it do what it does? We don't get a reason, an explanation, right? That's one. But another one is, what if we don't have good training data? I don't know if anyone saw there was a case where it was Apple. They created a credit card. Did anyone hear about it? It's a titanium credit card. Apple, the Apple phone, they now have credit cards, right? So they're like a bank now, right? Probably not in India maybe yet, but I think it's in the United States. They start, and then maybe they're, anyway, they have a credit card, and they were giving loans. So they had two people. They're both professionals, husband and wife, and they made I think they were co-workers in the same level in the same company, and they both applied for credit. And the husband got 30,000 US more credit line than she did. And they said, why? They couldn't really explain it, but what they did was they took all their past data and applied that to today's situation. So think about it. So let's say we have been discriminatory in the past. Maybe for good, bad, whatever reason, we have said, oh, we shouldn't lend to women. They're looking after the kids. They're at home. They can't be chartered accountants, right? And as a result, because of old social practices, the data never gave women actual proper loans. So if we use that to train the computer is going to be he's going to be the worst version of us, basically. Or not the worst, it's going to be taking all of history and saying, this is you. See, that doesn't work, right? So this is the challenge. So how can we have an intelligent computer trained on bad data? So question, what if we do not have good training data? So now we have these AI ethicists that are starting to come up where people are saying, well, now we need to look at the past and correct the past. We need to find ways to say, well, we shouldn't have done that. We really meant this. But it's a scary, weird field, right? We want to train, but we can't train, so we have to train it, but then correct it. It's a confusing space. But this is a problem that's very big across all of AI. And you read articles about it, and they are all kind of stuck. They have to have people. So in that example, they had to make an exception and change, but it was artificial intelligence that gave them the loan, because you get a loan answer back in 2 minutes. So they used an algorithm to do it, right? But it's a very good example. The world is biased, so our data is also biased. Yeah, that's our problem. I also found that AI is okay with deep, narrow applications, but not wide ones. So for instance, you have an AI that's built to beat the world's greatest Go player, or chess, or whatever, but you can't ask them to make a sandwich, if they could, because it's a totally different field, and they have to be trained. So they need an entire lifetime of experience. You think about all the things we can do and take for granted. We can do hundreds of thousands of things. So essentially, we would need hundreds of thousands of AIs put together to just be a normal human being, not a super person. So that's the challenge, is they're good with a specific task. But to put them together, it's gone, because we don't actually know what would happen. If we took AI 1, AI 2, AI 3, and 4, and 6, and 12, and put them together, we would get unpredictable results. We actually don't know. They would fight each other. Would they protect us? How do they see the world? Very differently than I think we would imagine, right? So we're not there in any sense. And the physical world remains a challenge for computers. I mean, they're not from our world. They are totally virtual. So that's when you see these cars, like the self-driving cars, they are really struggling with objects in 3D. Sometimes when everything goes perfectly, sure, they can drive on the road and everything is good, but then there is a construction. You move the sign. The lines on the road are not the lines in the road. And as human beings, we can figure this out. Oh, I guess I have to turn over into the opposite lane now. And the lines have gone. And we can figure this out. But computers have to be taught everything. And can you imagine trying to teach a computer everything that goes wrong in traffic? I've seen Mumbai traffic. It's very slow. It really doesn't go so fast because there's so much traffic. But just the zigging, right, the tuk-tuks and the little motorcycles in and out, you don't say there's 4 lanes, there's 8 lanes. They all mix and match, right? So, yeah, so the physical world, big challenge for computers. And finally, dealing with unpredictable human behavior. Right now, we go into traffic. People, they're in this lane now, and computers think, oh, you stay in your lane. No, now we're in this lane. And then, oh, I was going to make a right. Oh, I meant left. Oh, back over again. No, not predictable at all, right? We mess it all up for the computers. They were perfectly fine before without us, right? So yeah, many challenges for AI. So let's talk about global development. What sorts of things are happening? So, so of course, there's always been excitement around AI. And you'll see this actually started quite a long time ago. From the 50s, they started doing some experimental work on artificial intelligence. They came in from the 80s to probably 2010. Machine learning has been around a lot longer than I thought, actually, since the 80s. It was just very, very primitive. And deep learning really from 2010 onwards. So it's not all that old, right? For all the talk of AI, deep learning really from 2010 onwards started to become something. And it's probably a combination of computers getting more powerful. Space, we have the cloud storage. You want more CPU, you just tell it, I want 100 CPUs instead of 5. That wasn't really available before, right? Before, we had a server and and then you had to get another server and put them together. Now, cloud, you say, give me more, and you just get it. So now we're able to exploit this, but it took quite a while to even get this far, right? Now, so let's some examples that have been out there. So we're going to get to this example at the end, but I'll just, at a high level, there's really no industry that is not trying to use it in some fashion. I'm going to get to auditing, don't worry, we will get there. But just to show you how no one is really exempt from this, everyone is looking for technology and AI to help. But marketing, they say, is going to be absolutely huge in terms of targeting people and finding, the audience that people need. Sales, fraud detection, everyone is interested in looking at fraud. Can we get the computer to look at past patterns? Everyone is interested. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Of course, within finance, credit decisions, we talked about the Apple example. Maybe a little tune that AI a little bit, right? Risk management, trading platforms, all the transactions on trading desks, there's an enormous amount going on. Underwriting versus claims for insurance, obvious example, right? Claims history, underwriting history. For a whole industry, good examples. Healthcare, of course, you've heard of diagnostics and detection for things like MRIs, people looking for cancer, looking for tumors, and looking at basically all MRIs from the beginning of time, and then telling the computer, hey, by the way, this one turned out to be cancerous, this one was not, and feeding that in, and the computers are getting incredible results. They see things that we don't, as human beings, can detect by looking at the pages. So there's a lot of work going in there. AI microscopes is a new area where we can see things that are not really detectable, but the computer can see them. For discovering drugs, to find out what combination of things can work together is very, very time consuming normally. Automotive, we talked about self-driving cars. Assembling and QA. People, this is actually very tricky. And I think our president here said that in some ways when it comes to assembly, sometimes they retreat and they say, no, we got to keep this as a human activity for now. So they have gone, I think Elon Musk, he tried to go all robotics and it failed. He had to step back and say, we're not ready yet. Because remember that whole multidisciplinary thing? A computer can be good in a narrow space, but to put 5 things together, they're not ready for it. So the whole job has to change. If you want to have narrow activity, what happens in between? That's why the human beings are still very important, right? Maintenance prediction, of course. Retail, have you heard about Amazon Go? There's a store in California. So you have heard of it. A store in California where basically there's no cashiers. You just walk into the store, they scan your eye, and you have your app. You pick up stuff, you put them in your bucket, and you just leave, and it just bills you. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. So now, is that going to be mainstream? There are a lot of problems with the system, and it's not foolproof, but it's just to show that it is possible. Airlines and travel, optimizing flight bookings, predicting when machines or planes need to be coming for maintenance. Cybersecurity is big. If you want to say, is an attack happening? Does something look like an attack is happening? They can see some patterns. Because the thing about viruses and virus scanning is that if they call it a zero-day exploit. You guys have heard of that expression, right? A zero-day exploit. When something new, virus scanners don't really work because virus scanners need to know what it looks like to say this is the problem. So we need to find something before we know it's a problem. So that's what AI is starting to get very good at, to say behavior is unusual. I don't know what it is, but it's doing something that looks like a pattern that could be used to exploit us. So it's very interesting stuff. Smart assistants, of course, on my own phone. It's face recognition now, right? So I look and it knows that it's me. By the way, does anyone have a Google Pixel? The Pixel, this is a Pixel 4. It's a little creepy, but if I close my eyes, it goes inside my eyelids and it still opens. Yeah, it's crazy. It can be pitch black. I close my eyes. If I do like this and I close my eyes, it can unlock my phone. Really? It's because they have a radar sensing thing. It's a chip they do for that. Because if it's just photo, no, it won't work. But yeah, they do it, which is crazy, right? Because they're not using the camera. They're using this radar, whatever thing. So yeah, I know. A lot of people found it. Google was going to put in a change to the software because people didn't like the fact that they could be asleep, and you know, your wife puts your phone up and unlocks it. All the men are like, ooh, better not buy that phone. Just kidding. Anyway, so I wanted to show you a section. Now, restaurants and food services. I want to show you a very short video, the one I said I'm editing, that I put together, because it's something we can all relate to. Food. We go out for dinner. You know, what do they do in AI for that? So I'm just going to switch over for a second here. And I have it on YouTube right over here. Where did I put it? Maybe I can just click it again. Here we go. So let me just enlarge this. Now, there should be sound on it. And so this is about artificial intelligence applications are getting their way into the food industry. So there's many different articles that I just cut together. But just to get a sense of what's there. Now, you see the screen? I'm going to enlarge it. But can you actually see the screen okay? There's not a lot of text on the screen. I'm just going to go like this. Okay, are we ready? There's a little bit of sound, but you'll hear it.
In the United States right now, there's a shortage of 800,000 positions within the fast food industry.
Welcome to Good Times.
Good Times Burgers, a Colorado-based fast food chain, has found a way to address the problem. An automated order taker at one of its stores has started handling drive-through traffic at breakfast.
We're trying to be the absolute best company in the world for conversational AI ordering in fast food.
Rob Carpenter founded Valiant AI, the creator of an artificial intelligence system he claims is the first of its kind in the world. A pavement sensor recognizes a car pulling up.
And we greet the customer and we say,
welcome to Good Times.
The customer will say something like, I want a cheeseburger. We grab that audio, we send it up to our AI algorithm, which translates it to text We then insert that cheeseburger into the point of sale system so that when someone pulls up, they can pay.
Employees focus on filling the order. A third of their workload has been taken off their plate.
You have two customers, right? You have customers behind the counter and in front of the counter. When you create a great work environment as a business owner, you need to provide the best tools and the best opportunity for them to relax and enjoy their jobs. And that's what this does. It relieves you. And it also gives the opportunity for the employee, when they're not having to stand behind a fryer or stand on top of a grill, that they're able to focus on the customer.
This robot isn't what I had imagined. Instead of a mechanical arm flipping burgers as we've seen in the past, Creator has built a 14-foot all-in-one burger machine that uses 350 sensors and 20 computers. It takes 5 minutes to make a burger start to finish. And with 2 machines, this Creator team can make 130 burgers per hour here at their first location.
So this baby back there, it makes literally the freshest burger ever. We slice tomatoes, pickles, onions, the bun to order, but my favorite part actually grinds the meat to order, which means we make an amazing burger and it's $6. So for instance, with the hamburger buns, each one is slightly different size. And so on the bun system alone, there's 7 different laser distance sensors that are watching every little aspect of it, seeing where the buns are, how they're moving, and so forth. A burger is a composed dish, which means you need to be able to accurately control where everything is and where it's going and how it kind of comes together. And for that, we had to build a device with a pretty impressive amount of dexterity.
As soon as you walk through the door, you get your first glimpse of the Spice Robotic Kitchen. From there, you reach our ordering kiosks, where you enter your meal. From when you place your order to when you get your meal should take around 3 minutes.
All of the recipes are developed by human chef Sam Benson. Spice serves warm grain bowls topped with vegetables and sauce. To get it started, a robotic runner picks up the ingredients he selected from their individual hoppers. The runner stops at the wok that will cook your meal and drops off the ingredients. The grains are catapulted in by a cup measure behind the scenes. The woks are heated by individual heaters that use magnetic fields. Even though your food gets hot, the heaters stay cool to the touch. After a bowl is done cooking, the wok tips downward to plate the food. From there, a cook grabs it to put on the finishing touches. While that's happening, the wok tilts down and is hit with a jet of hot steam to clean it before it starts cooking the next meal. All allergens are kept outside of the wok, so there's no risk for cross-contamination.
Yeah, crazy, right? So let me just, I gotta move over a little bit. So what I want to say though is this is all real. These are actual companies. This is not a lab. This is not part of the university that said, well, let's try something and see if it works. They're making money. They're live, they're running, they're out there. Like that, the last one examples are with the little bowls that cooked magnetic cooking. They were kids. They were 23 years old, 25 years old. There's more to the interview you didn't see. But they came out of school and they put this together. And the meals are cheap. Cheap for, normally you'd pay $15 for a meal. It's like $8. But you can see everything is stripped down. Touch screen, order. Everything else happens. Person takes it, puts a little scoop. There you go, right? McDonald's. You've seen McDonald's here. They have a touch screen, right? All the ordering now. They don't get rid of all the people, right? But you can see jobs that we kind of thought, I can't really pay to do. It can be done. Another thing I wanted to mention, remember the fast food, and I'm sorry for all the burger examples, I know there's a lot of vegetarians, but it's very American, right? This is what they do, right? But the fast food example with the flipping the burgers, guess what a machine like that costs? So a machine, so it flips burgers, it cleans the cooking plate after it changes tool from a flipper to a scraper. It cleans itself when it's done. And it has a track, and it does the French fries and moves it and all that stuff. $30,000 US. $30,000 US is about the same price as a person, right? But that's the whole kitchen, right? So things are changing, and that price used to be $40,000, $50,000. This year it's $30,000. Next year it'll be $20,000. So it's changing the nature of the game, right? So those, yes, there will be people, but they're going to be doing different kinds of things. So I just thought it was interesting because we sort of forget. We all have a relationship with food. We always go out for dinner and all these things. But if these machines cost very little, now in India wages are different, but no one's immune to this, right? They don't strike. They always show up on the job. Now, there will be other people will be maintaining these machines. They'll fill the machines. They'll serve. And people evolve. There will be other jobs. It's not going to be all without a job. We're going to find ways to insert us into it and to give value to us, right? But it's just about, it is changing. It is shifting. So there are some that will be dead ends, and others will blossom and become new, lively industries, right? So I just thought it was interesting. And if you look at the projections, one that I actually thought they underrepresented here, they talk about marketing. This is projections for AI today and within the next 6 years. Agriculture. Has anyone ever seen what they've done in agriculture now? I was going to put it in the video, but I thought it might get too long. They have robots that will pick berries and fruits. Apple trees, they'll have an arm goes up, and it'll look at the apple, and it'll use its machine vision to see how ripe the apple is. It can look inside the apple, and then it has a suction vacuum, and it pops it off. There's one with green peppers that it goes up under the plants, and it has a little blade that comes up and cuts it, and it falls into a basket, and it picks the green peppers gently. But they say the green pepper machine can cut them every 20 seconds. It can cut a pepper, which is not that fast, but it works 24/7. When it's pitch black, it's out there picking, and it can scan to make sure that they're ripe, right? People go, right? So it is quite interesting, right? But agriculture, this is going to go crazy, much more than this, because there's a very difficult time getting laborers. If you look in the United States, with Mexico, immigration now, they're all fighting immigration. There's going to be machines doing this stuff, right? So big changes coming. Okay, so if you look at the actual, so what are the main business drivers? So we've seen all this. So what are the things? I would say there's really 5 things that make AI something that companies will want to do. Number 1, they're looking for, of course, higher productivity, faster work. Can we find something where we're just doing the job faster? Not all cases is the job faster. Like the picking the peppers, 20 seconds is a human being can do it faster. But if there are cases where they can do the job faster, welding robots on a car, boom, 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 okay, maybe that's faster. Number 2, higher quality work. If they can do more consistent, higher quality work, and I would say it's more similar, more consistent, they would do it. Seeing what humans cannot. This is actually a big deal. Remember the hamburger example where there was a little screen that showed little frames and it showed cooked burger, not cooked burger? They're using the heat sensors and special sensors to scan through the burger to say it's not cooked through, or this is fully cooked, right? For us, we can kind of look at something and say, yeah, it seems cooked. But this can know that it's cooked inside, right? So you think about that. That's another level that we really can't compete with, right? Predicting what humans cannot, right? If they have the wealth of the knowledge from 50 years of transactions available every second to make a decision, human beings don't have that in our brains, right? And then finally, labor augmentation. This is where they can't get the staff. You saw the first example where they said there's a shortage of people in the fast food industry, that no one wants to work these jobs, and we can't get enough people. They're going to want to do it there. So those are sort of the 5 main business drivers. Now let's talk about audit, the audit perspective. So remember the slide? We just saw the slide. From an audit perspective, the same 5 topics really still matter. They still count, but we have to look at them from an audit perspective and what this looks like. So when we talk about faster work or higher productivity, things like robotics process automation and general automation is the audit flavor of this, that we would want to automate certain parts of the job that can be, right? More consistent, higher quality work. We may say that if we have audit apps that can execute a series of tests, the data comes in a similar fashion, they execute the similar types of tests, there's consistency. Seeing what humans cannot, we're going to start to see things like machine learning and natural language processing that can use on learning, looking at past transactions, can see trends that we cannot easily. Predicting what humans cannot, of course, statistical methods and AI in general can start to say, well, based on what I've seen over the past 10 years, this will probably be where your transactions are going, right? And of course, cost savings. And we're talking about potentially RPA and audit apps. So let's get into these things. Now, some people have always thought that robotics process automation is not really AI, right? And I kind of thought that in the beginning too, that you could say, well, it's just kind of doing a bunch of steps. How is that intelligence, right? But intelligence, from a broad perspective, is doing what humans, would normally do. So if you use that definition, if a human being runs, accounts payable or accounts receivable process, there is some thought process involved in doing that. Just because computers have got better at scanning emails, detaching the document, reading through the document, producing a payment, mailing it out to people, just because we got good at doing it doesn't mean that we are not doing something a person has traditionally done. So basically, it still counts. We are doing something a person would normally do, so it still counts as automation. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes robotics process automation isn't really always that intelligent. So we'll talk a bit about what that really means, what that is, what it is, who does it, how it can help. And then we'll look at audit apps, how they can be reusable in any data source, how you can automate the process from end to end. We'll just show you from an audit perspective. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about machine learning and deep learning for auditors. Statistical methods, outlier analysis, and continuing there. Okay, so let's talk a bit about RPA, robotic process automation. So what we really want to do, things that are repetitive and time-consuming, we want to be able to automate if we can. So the features are really that we are going to use the existing systems that are around. We're going to automate. We call it automation of automation. We're basically going to automate what is around us. And it shouldn't be, we say non-invasive, but meaning that we're not necessarily re-engineering the process. So that's the thing. If you completely change the process, it's not necessarily RPA, it's just a better process. So RPA is kind of like you have a bad process and you want to make it faster, but you're not really, overall improving it. So I'm going to skip this then. So basically, it needs to be definable if you want to have a task that's appropriate, because not all things can work for robotics process automation. There are many things that are just not worth doing, right? It's got to be something you can define clearly. It's got to be standard. It's got to be based on some sort of rules. It doesn't have to be the same every time, right? But it has to be, there's a decision, you can do A, B, or C. But not, oh, I don't know, let's dream something new up. No, there has to be a defined path, repetitive, of course, and then the inputs should be machine readable, right? So basically, if you look at, and this is a chart I've seen used before, but if you look at, they say, traditional process automation, things that happen all the time, high frequency, those ones are the known suspects that we've probably already created a macro or we've already automated. And then way down here, we have the stuff that really can only be done by humans because it's too haphazard and it's not really defined, and every time it's different. So RPA kind of lives in the middle here. As I mentioned, it's a bad process we're trying to make faster, basically, right? So not all organizations are going to have a lot in here, but that's basically where that lives. And the kinds of things that we're doing now, and we kind of forget, some of these you don't quite realize that we can now do fairly easily, but open, read, and create emails that you can scan an email address or an account, look for types of emails, take the attachments out, put them in a place, process the idea as a way to automate and also like using robotics, this kind of way of doing it. Log into enterprise apps, yes, it can send keystrokes, it can call functions, it can do things as if you were a person, right? There's what do you call it, development kits and APIs to help you do this. Move files and folders, copy paste, fill in forms, right? We always assume this is a person activity, but they can do that now. If you log into a page, the technology can say, have the page loaded, find this form, or find this tab, this field, wait till it's ready, put the data in, make sure it's working. It's sometimes error prone, but you can do this now. Write the databases, follow decision rules, check what's in the field. If I see this, go this way. If I see that, go another way. Simple decisions trees, yes. Collect, extract data from documents, again, PDF. Anyone use Report Reader, an idea? Bring PDF documents in, right? Very powerful way, and so forth. Lots of different activities can be done with it now. And again, robotic process automation sits on top of your systems today. You're not rebuilding it, you're just kind of making what's there faster. And I'll just there's an email account with PDF invoices. We scan, or the routine scans this email account, pulls out the right email, pulls out the PDF, puts it in some Excel, sends an email to the vendor for confirmation, and then it's done. So these, you would typically have a person doing. Okay, so that's RPA. Again, works for some things. There are lots of things that it doesn't work for, but if there are areas that are very manual, that are routine and common, you could. Now, audit apps is different. Audit apps is where the audit itself has been standardized. So you know the tests you're going to perform, you know the data that is coming in, and you know the quality of the data, and you know what the findings are going to be. So there are audits like that. Purchasing card, right? You're looking at general ledger. Maybe you're looking for fraud, certain types of frauds. You actually know what the tests are in advance. And you map the data once, and then you can do it on a monthly basis, daily basis, weekly basis. But it's that continuous monitoring type of audit where you actually know the rules of the game. And there are many of those audits when you think about it, right? Not all, but there are, from a financial perspective, you're starting to see that. And you're going to see an example, something coming up later, where we're starting to use some AI and some audit intelligence on general ledger. And you're going to start to see transactions and how we can pull this information out. It's built for a particular business process. End-to-end audit is from getting the data, running the tests, identifying exceptions, and putting the report together. Because it knows if this test failed, it knows what the report should say, right? Transforms data into standard format. Test can be used on any source data. As I mentioned, system changes, all the tests stay the same. You just change the mapping, so this field is now that field. But all the battery of tests that you've got remain. So you don't have to throw it all out and start over. They keep their tests forever, and you just map to a new data source. Okay. All right. So now we're talking about adding machine learning and deep learning to the audit process. So you can see how on the bottom of the page here, we talk about the simpler, the more rules-based traditional CAT tools. We have some business rules, standard fraud analytics, statistical methods. Okay, we're going to start to look at Benford's law, some regression analysis, common ones. And then we see the more learning-based coverage, machine learning, starting to learn from the past, as we've seen. And there's a concept called ensemble AI, which is basically combining all the above to become basically more well-rounded audits. So if you're looking at how do we create more risk-based, data-driven audits, what are the stages you would involve? Where you try to bring in more AI, you try to bring in more intelligence. So you would need to capture your data. You need to enrich your data. In other words, make sure that it is actually in the proper format. Rationalize it, normalize your data. You'd validate the data in some fashion. Then you would basically perform actions on the data. You would reconcile it, and then you analyze and report. So and as you can see here, they just overlay what we really can only go so far. You need to have more and more intelligence the further you go. I'm going to show you something, and they just the entire flow. So you'll hear talk about things like data-driven engagements, AI-infused workflows. A lot of people are starting to use words like AI-infused. What they're just saying is that there's an element of this that uses some kind of machine learning, or an element of this uses some kind of natural language processing. There's no audits. You can't use AI to audit all aspects of audit, really, still. But what they're just saying, they're starting to bring pieces of AI into it to make it a little easier, to give the auditor a better sense for, am I missing something? Is there something out of whack that I wouldn't humanly be able to do in 5 minutes? So we're seeing a lot of this concept of AI-infused workflows. And then finally, real-time collaboration is very important because to make this an efficient audit, you need to get the client on board. Okay. So if you look at data-driven audits, we're going to show an example where we walk through this, where we start with the data source. We look at the GL. We look at transactions, trial balance. We identify risks in the business, look at the evidence, and we work our way all the way through and discuss with the client. So I'm going to show you what that actually looks like. Just for, we're going to get there in a couple of slides. So just talking about, we talked about robotics process automation. I just had this a few months ago. There was, at the user group, there's a UK-based insurer. They had a very complex expense analysis process. They had corporation tax, VAT expense, employee expense. And this was not an audit department. This was a manual analyses every month for them to do. It was error-prone because it was so manual. Millions and millions of transactions every month. They knew what the requirement was. It was a government requirement to report. So they said, look, let's try to use an RPA tool to do this. Surprise, surprise, they used IDEA, which could do the analytics and RPA into the same client. IDEA running in a virtual machine, access to the corporate data. They schedule jobs. They're accessible from anywhere. Log into the VM. They get access to how is it going, any errors, what's happened. They detect changes in the data. They transform files. They reconcile automatically if something's out of whack. They go, hey, this isn't quite right. They can send out emails, notify people if things go wrong. They can break files into monthlies, consolidate the results, and they save weeks worth of effort every month, which was a pain of this process. And finance department has quite a lot on their plate already. This was just a chore that they needed to do, and they made mistakes. So they said, can we just get a client? And again, basically it's one copy of IDEA that's the workhorse, that's doing the majority of the work, and they've got some IDEA clients looking at the results. So it doesn't have to be a huge investment to do, right? Another example, talking about audit apps. There's something called Tax Audit Professional. There was a government ministry in Germany. They required tax reviews every month. It was a regulatory requirement. They understood the process very well. It didn't change. But there were sometimes minor variations that they had to do. So in other words, they may have to tweak this parameter. So sometimes they had to like a slightly higher amount, sometimes a slightly lower amount. So it wasn't like robotics per se. They needed the speed, but they didn't necessarily want it to be identical every time, right? It would take 2 weeks for every audit, and they had 2 of them they had to perform every month. And that they wanted management meetings and report creation. It was all part of this job. So they thought, let's try an audit app. So they started, here's a little picture of it over here, but it's this tax app they created, basically an audit app. So there's something called Smart Analyzer, right? An audit app, which no programming by the customer, maps to any data source. They used SAP in this example. They have custom parameters, so if for this particular example they need to tweak it a little higher, a little lower, they could just go in and say, okay, for this one, I'm going to change it. We're going to boost it a little bit. The risk is higher for this. Risk is lower for that. But they can basically get the consistency and the quality that would have a consistent run, and it would actually put the report together for them. So by completing the whole process, they reduced it basically from that solid month of solid work to, it's actually 3 days. I should have changed this here. But that's all meetings included. That's meeting the client, doing the work, doing the report, intervention, you mean, for users to get involved. Well, the process, provided that the data in a consistent format, is where there's something called Analytics AI. Video is. Still okay? All right, and I'll get my computer turned on, and then when you finish, I'll put the video on the end. Okay. I can talk forever and ever, so you may have to hold me back a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Hmm. Yeah. Of course. Okay, that's great. Yeah, sure. Yes. Hmm. Right. Right.
How do you see the implication, especially for this industry?
Right. It's a very good question, actually, and it's something we've discussed many times, is to say, how will this translate? What I'm finding is that the initial thought is, if labor cost is very much cheaper, it doesn't matter, right? But that's actually not what's happening. Employers do want, and we saw that in other examples where remember the 5 points where there's the consistency, uh, for the time savings. There are many aspects to automation, and some of them is that we can run it 24 hours a day. We can run it when you're at home. When we have a public holiday, this thing keeps going. But it's kind of like the picking the green peppers, how it takes 20 seconds to pick them, which is longer than a human being takes. But it does a more thorough job. So then the human beings are more or less making sure that these things are all running, so they can now do more things. I kind of compare it to a dishwasher. At home, right? Dishwashers are not faster than people, right? It takes half an hour, 40 minutes. How long does it take a dishwasher, right? Long time. If we just got in the sink, we go crazy, we can do it in 20. But we don't have to do it, right? That's the trick. So if you could take a task that is very routine and put it on the schedule, and then you free your time to do other things. Yes, I know the labor cost isn't so much, but the fact is, if you can then deploy that resource in something that makes you more money, or it invests in the future, you're building this new thing that's going to do better things for your company. Because you can't just, hiring more people doesn't always make you faster, right? You hire 20 people and you're 20 times more productive? Not really, right? There comes a point when the team size has gone beyond the natural ability to absorb, right? You get too many people, there's too many managers, and you have to coordinate, and now you need a layer of coordination. So it's a balancing act, I agree. At a basic level, labor cost, of course, is critical. But companies are starting to see other benefits from it. So maybe not the smallest companies, but it doesn't take much before a routine task, like it's like calculators, right? If you had 10 people, would you not want calculators? Of course we do. Because we don't want to do this work. We make mistakes. It's a pain, right? So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
No, thought is there in my mind that the way in radiology, they have a MRI report, a CAT scan, CT scan coming. Do you see somewhere in 5-10 years, AI will make audit as efficient as what an MRI report gives to a doctor to opine where the patient is not well? Do you see that happening in 5-10 years?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, I actually think healthcare needs a lot of technology, in my opinion. Like, what I hate, I had my mom broke an ankle, and she went and had to talk to 3 different doctors, and they looked at the MRI and they couldn't tell that it was broken. Oh, you're fine, go home, whatever. And it was really frustrating that we could spend so much time, go to this person, doctor, and this person, and they somehow, the other doctor said, how can this person not see? It's broken. I can see it's broken. But that person had a bad day, or there's dirt on the lens, and they gave us a bad answer. It's just a sloppy doctor, right? But the suffering that my mom went through to get to the right doctor, right? So I think there are jobs like that where if I had the computer tell me with no bias, it's not tired, it doesn't want to go home, it's not sleepy, it gives me the right answer, I think healthcare is clearly going to have a lot of technology. And then the doctor's going to use for more bedside matter. How are you doing? Are you okay? Talk to you. Tell me how you're feeling. And then I'll get that in the system, and then we'll say, okay, now we can test you. So I think when it comes to audit and data, I think once we get more standardized reporting and configuration of systems, like look at something like SAP, right? Big enterprise systems, and all the elements are there. Still, there isn't one way to configure SAP, right? You can configure SAP in many different ways, store the data in many places, right? So even now, it's tricky for us to just say, I can run my audits and I know where all the data is. There's a lot of time still required to really, truly understand how each system is different, what the industry is, and what it means. I do think eventually, now we may be talking 20 years down the road, I do think systems will audit themselves. I do think it's going to happen eventually, but I just think we're quite far away from it. We have a lot of poor systems. You buy an acquisition, company A buys company B. We inherit their system and our system. Oh, we got to put them together. You know, and it never really works. It's not that slick, right? But I do think long term, when these systems become much more standardized, and I think government standards can help. There's XBRL as a start, right? But many of these systems, when they get standardized formats, yes, I do think that we're going to have systems that can know, here's an invoice, I'm in this industry, let's see it trade through the system. Who paid for it? Who ordered it? Who received the product? You know, and just go through the whole cycle. I do think over time we're going to have systems that can help audit themselves. But then who audits that system? Right? And no joke, I mean, machines by themselves, I remember I talked about how they're very narrow, but they're not very wide. For them to actually truly understand what's going on, it's going to take a while. So we still need people to look at those systems to say, how are they configured? Is it finding the right exceptions? Let me think of something new. Has it really happened yet? Right? So we're always going to be in there because the human being is great at breaking the system. You want to commit a fraud? If you have a system that does things always the same way every time, what a perfect place to commit a fraud, right? The system is too dumb. It does things only one way. And if a human being says, hey, I'm going to game the system, I have an account, what is it not doing? Oop, now I broke it. And I pull data, and the system doesn't know it's being cheated, right? So there's always going to be people looking at it. But I think there's a lot of basic audits I think can be automated. So I don't know if that answers your question. We're going to need the people still because we're way too clever when it comes to sabotage. We're very good at that. I do think so. I think so. Why wouldn't we? I mean, you think about it. The data in our application, if we know what it means, we know what it represents, and we know what parts relate to other parts, we can draw an inference. We can say, this happened. It's just that, and the problem with auditing is that we're too narrow. That's actually a big problem of ours, right? We audit payroll, but we don't audit the life cycle of this employee. You know what I mean? We think too small. A computer will be able to extrapolate to say, here's from cradle to grave, this person started at this age, and they died at this age, and we're going to follow their life. And we're going to see how they changed. They started doing this, then they moved into that. Compared to another employee who went through the cycle. How are they different? You know, we don't audit that way. We audit, payroll, but we don't think big, right? So computers will be able to do this eventually. All right. Basically, so this is about Caseware as a product. There are other products out there, but there is a Caseware Analytics AI is about taking the financial statement and trying to use audit intelligence and artificial intelligence to help flesh out, to identify areas of risk. So it is about taking the business knowledge you have, that you can define some rules, and you can define what it means to you as a business. You can say, this is more important to me, this is not so important to me. And then it will tell you what parts of your business are riskier. Based on what you've told me, based on all the rules, these things are a little more risky. It's not saying they're wrong, but it's something you should look at. It draws your attention because we can't look at everything, but we need to have a structured, consistent way of saying, if I see these 5 things, I'm more concerned. I need to verify. Right? So artificial intelligence is included in here. So basically, the key features, and I'll dig that video out in a second. Import's very simple. Data mapping is very simple. Data validation and completeness is included. Transactional analysis can be tailored to your needs. It comes with one, but you can tweak it as just one time business. Testing uses audit intelligence and artificial intelligence based on what you could tweak, turn on, turn off, see how it changes your results, and go for it. The insights can be very powerful. It's risk-based, and of course, important to auditors, regulators come in afterwards and saying, what did you do? You could say, this is what I did, and these are the parameters I used, and this is why I did what I did. So here's the proof. So if someone else gets the same file with the same settings, they get the identical results. Right? Because this is very important. People want to know an audit trail. You know, how do we know we picked up the right things, right? Later, how can you get started? Or continue the journey, right? So when it comes to your audit process, we talk about RPA as one of the things, right? Is that we're going to have to do more with less in some way, right? And robotics process automation can help on that journey if there are parts of your job that are kind of routine. But we need to look at the entire audit process, our entire audit life cycle, to say the way we are with our clients, that communication, the audit process, how we kick off projects, how we build them, how we identify issues, how we connect them to risks, how we report them, how we follow up on them, how we track them, how we engage everyone in that entire audit process is often disjointed today. It is often separate emails, separate documents, copy, paste, link here, link here. There's a lot of inefficiency because it's hard to create efficiency, right? It doesn't happen naturally. It's a bunch of emails, it's a bunch of documents, Excel, all over the place. So to be more efficient, if you can integrate this process in your life cycle, there are platforms where you can do that, right? That helps. Collaborate with clients on a single platform, that helps streamline everything. So people said, didn't I send a note on that? Do they have an email from the client on that? It's there, it's in the file. You've got it. It's all connected. Someone wants to know, someone wants to challenge, you don't have to go find it. Person leaves, oh, we lost all their data. No, it's all in the file. You don't have to think about it. Make every audit a data-driven audit. Where you possibly can, try to let the data tell a story rather than you have a conversation over a cup of tea. No, make the data. The data should reveal itself what happened in the company to you. If we can't do that, then we're not really auditing. Use analytics for all phases of projects. We should have some sense. If you have data, we should be able to challenge the data. Tell me if this control is working. Do I see what I think I should be seeing? We should always question what we have in the system. I think we talked about how we can use where manual work is an obstacle. We can use the RPA. Audit apps, if you have a well-defined process, if there are some things, and there are hundreds and hundreds of these out there, right, that are just for a process, HR, payroll, GL, AP, order to cash, whatever. There's lots of these out there. They may not be perfect for you, but there's lots out there that you can say, let's try something and see if it gives us something. Maybe it's a starting point. Maybe it's the whole audit, right? But there are options out there that you can do just to catch up, to get ahead. Augment audits with statistical models and machine learning. I think this is very useful. If you have a sense for, and this is modeling, right? By models I'm really highlighting here. If you have a model for how the business runs, what kind of business are we? Are we a cyclical kind of business? Are we seasonal? What's our trend going in the industry? What's our trend for us? We should always be able to relate to the business from a model perspective. And all these tools can help with that, right? And finally, the ability to evolve to a continuous monitoring approach and a deep learning approach. So in other words, that we don't necessarily need, and I'm talking because they're internal and external audit, right? But from an internal audit perspective, certainly, instead of us creating a 3-year plan, showing up once every 3 years, Or let's wait, it's like the Olympics, every 4 years you do an audit. Oh, sorry, we just had a fraud. 2 people left. You missed it. Sorry. We have to evolve, right? We have to evolve to, if we know what's risky and we know what's important, we should be able to have that trigger. So we get notified much sooner. They say the average fraud takes, I think it's 21 months to discover. I did another fraud session. It's over 20 months. But by the time you finally find the fraud, and I think it's about more than 80% of the funds are typically unrecoverable 21 months later, right? So if you don't see these things soon, you can't deal with it. So that would be my final point here. Yep. Yep. Please. Yep. Yep. Yes. Yep. That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, thanks a lot for having us here at such short notice, and thanks to Nandita Bain and Manish Bhai. So I think that's here. Now, I'll just focus. I was supposed to focus on the India story. So my presentation will just take 5 minutes by the time he sets it up, and then he can have his video on analytics AI. Let me tell you, India is no different from global perspective. Only thing is, the only difference is that most of the products for auditors are getting developed in the West. Why? Because they have the resources. Because if you look at I was talking to Jeff the other day, if you look at the resources spent globally in North America and the rest of the world on external audit, there are surveys on that because data is available on that. You will find 75% of the total spend on external audit is in North America and 25% is rest of the world. Right. So naturally, the resources required to develop products all the development would happen in North America. But there is no use or usage of technology or solutions in North America and in India. What we find is when we deal or when we go out to government clients or to private sector clients and also to CA firms, what we are finding is many of them across the country, government in a huge way, government is far ahead in using analytics for doing data crunching, for doing all the tasks that Jeff talked about. Because I think if you look at a society, then 80% is or 90% would be government owned. We are a society of organizations or corporations, and most of the services and corporations are government delivered to us. So I think naturally they require to use analytics and AI best to ensure that the interest of the society is protected. Right. So they are using that. They're doing that because when we go out to ministries or when we go out to CG or look at the government spend, look at the subsidy transfer, direct benefit transfer, look at the tax collection systems, look at the risk models being created to look at tax evasion, etc. We find that government is putting in a lot of emphasis on analytics, AI models, and there's no difference between what's happening in the West and what's happening in India. Similarly, large corporations are also using the same way, using technology to, in audit sphere, in internal audit as well as in external audit, to use the tools of analytics and slowly audit apps, RPA. And I had an example here. I'll not go into it on robotic process automation, where a large automobile supplier, as we said, a large supplier gets PDF files and has to make payments, accounts payable system. System and then look at accounts payable. So all that millions of transactions can be done through technology, using technology. So it's RPA process per se. If you look at individual CA firms or audit firms, you look at procurement, you look at payroll tests, you look at accounts payable, accounts receivable, you look at general ledger tests. Audit analytics have been used last 5 years, have seen an explosion in the country on use of audit tests. In procurement itself, you can use more than 30 or 40 tests, where you can, before you start audit, if you have the data, if you have the ledgers, if you have the purchase ledgers, if you have the receipt ledgers, you can just actually run those 20, 30, 35 tests. And these are the deviations and go armed with those deviations to actually discuss it. and then also do the physicals which are required. So you can use analytics, and there's an explosion of use of analytics. Uh, Caseware idea also comes armed with a lot of audit apps. When you talk about fuzzy logic, you talk about red flags, you talk about things which are happening, in terms of forensics. I think it helps the auditors a lot, because that's again an area where uh, audit apps or solutions are being used in the country. So what I can say is, since I was supposed to say only for 5 minutes today now, so what I can say is that analytics is being used in the country. There's an explosion. 18 years back, when we talked about analytics, there were few takers, but in the last 5 years, there's an explosion on the use of analytics in the country by CA firms, practicing CA firms, by private sector clients, by NGOs, and by the government sector. So it's big. It's really getting big. The next development which we are seeing is coming very fast is use of machine learning, AI, which you talked about. I think maybe we'll see a video now, but that is also happening fast now, because you can do basic analytics maybe with Excel. You can do some basic analytics with some rudimentary tools, but you'll have to use specialized tools, small tools, but use specialized tools to do machine learning, because you cannot do machine learning with absolutely what's there on a desktop. So you will see what Caseware has done, which is now being used on experimental basis in the country and will be used more and more by auditing firms, where we are talking about taking a general ledger, looking at outliers. So you are saying what can go wrong? How does the general ledger behave? How does data behave? So you are actually using machine learning not only in a very big audit shop, but in a small audit shop at small client places also, because you do not want to have surprises as an internal auditor or as a statutory auditor. You do not want to have surprises, and there's a lot of regulation. Early on when we used to do internal audit, you just find one or two issues, it was fine. Today, if you leave something out, if you have done in your audit checklist, you've checked something, the audit committee comes down very hard on you, or still the promoter comes down on you very hard on you. Even if there's no audit committee, private limited, large companies, they would say, you looked at that and why did it happen, right? So nobody wants surprises. So I think that's another reason why people want more efficiency. Times are hard, so they want every rupee saved. They don't want any frauds happening in the organization. So they want comprehensive reviews. People would not be happy to say ke payroll mein you found this. So then the next question they'll ask you is, last 2 years mein what's the revenue leakage? Yeah, total. Give me the total revenue leakage. Don't tell me ek mahine mein itna ho gaya. In 1 month you found this. So basically, because of comprehensiveness, because of the quality of data we are talking about, because of consistency, I think more and more audit apps are being used, more and more scripts are being used, more and more tools are being used, and we are moving towards machine learning. We are moving towards, and the day is not far when you'll use machine learning a lot. But as Jeff rightly said, you'll still require the brains. So you'll require higher level management in internal audit, but the routine, the basics would be done by the solutions, tools which are available to you easily. So I think, any questions on the India story? Yeah, please. Okay, I'll go back to what I said earlier. If we upgrade ourselves, there'll be no replacement. So, if we are doing routine stuff without upgrading ourselves, then naturally you'll get replaced, because that's what is happening in organization in other functions. Because unless you upgrade yourself, unless you start thinking, a time is not far when, routine stuff people do not want. Okay, I can give you an example from other than an audit world, because that makes more sense. You look at a forging industry, oil and gas industry, and you have workers who can actually pull out, small pieces of forges which are heated in the hot furnace. You can actually take a pair of tongs and pull it out and then put it in a press, from a hammer to a press sort of thing, and still it can be done cheaper. But today, if you go to most force shops, they will not want to do it manually because first of all, labor is not available. They don't want to work in that kind of environment. It's difficult to manage labor, so they'll have manipulators. They'll have forklift sort of equipment, manipulators, which they call them, which will do the work. It's a battery operated manipulator. Which will just take it and do it. And the manipulator can work 24/7. You can just change the operator and they'll keep on working, right? A person standing there in that heat, you'll require to change that person every 3 hours, 4 hours, and give them rest. So it's like I'm just saying that in an audit cycle also, the routine stuff, basic reconciliations, testing for, you can have 20 apps, audit apps in procurement, just go on saying what can go wrong, and if a press of a button, you can do that on the first day. Why would I want my semi-qualified or my chartered to go out and spend 20 days doing it? Because I can get all the data on the first day and say, these are the 20 things going wrong. Let me just focus on that and then focus on the quality of purchases. Try to add value to the purchase department. So I would have my chartered accountant going and focusing on procurement function per se, talking to the head, looking at what can we add value to the function per se in the next 10 days rather than doing only those tests. Because those tests we can comprehensively cover in just 10 minutes in our office or in that client location and get all the deviations. And maybe more and more what we find when we're talking to people is that auditors, internal auditors per se, are devising tests, and then in large finance company like we saw in the IDEA conference 2 days back, and then we formed a number of companies across the country. When auditors are devising or thinking of tests, they are thinking audit tests, and the routine tests, they are actually handing over the solution to the business. They are saying, you test it yourself, do a self audit, because I don't want to do this is routine stuff, we'll do something better. So that is happening more and more in industry, and that will happen more and more in the CA firms also, because you just give the routine stuff to the business and say we work together as a partner. So that is another trend which is happening. Yeah, please. Right. Okay. Okay, I'll take your question. 18 years we have tried to sell to the CA fraternity, right? It's the most tough market in the world. It's the toughest market in the world because Indians do not want to spend money on software. But that is changing because more and more firms, more and more organizations are using softwares because there is no other way. What is happening is there is no other way forward, because you'll be left out behind. Whether it is regulation which is saying you use CATs or data analytics, or whether it is your peer review which is saying use your working papers, and whether it is the more regulation is driving it, the need for the market efficiency and effectiveness is driving it. So slowly you will find, and also chartered, the availability of manpower is driving it. So slowly you will find that people, we have seen in the last 5 years there's an explosion by CA firms to use tools, solutions, because there's no other way forward. This is the only way. If you look at, I just was reading the Bombay Chartered Account Society Journal. It said there are 130,000 practicing chartered accountants for a country of 1.3 billion. Okay, so they are easing out the pass rate for chartered accountants so that you can have more chartereds in the country. So you can imagine the ratio of people versus the chartered accountants are getting smaller and smaller. So we find that there's an explosion. What it was 15 years, 20 years back, there's a revolution now. And we find that adoption of the latest technique is getting better. So we also find that there are a lot of outsourced departments. The Indians are doing a lot of outsourced algorithms and they cannot do it manually. So more and more things are getting done. I can give you an example. Money laundering. How much cash has been deposited or how many transactions has been done. Earlier you would require a chartered accountant to, or maybe semi-qualified, to go through it and say this is what is required. They'll spend days and days poring over the statements and saying ye hua, and then maybe have it given to the authorities. Nowadays you can just take a tool, get a PDF converter, convert it, run certain macros, run certain data, and in 10 minutes you can find out what's happened in the last 10 years. So it's getting automated. So I think tough market, but emerging market. Yeah. Whether it is internal audit, we have taken internal audit because I think it's the internal audit committee, and we are all internal auditors. So audit is audit. So in audit, you run number of tests. You have, when you go to do statutory audit, external audit, you have so many tests. Most of the tests which can be done through computers would be done through tools, and I think most of the firms are doing it. So cutoff, sampling, actual testing, getting your data, the control testing. IFC may be done by the company in-house or maybe got done from a CA firm from outside, but still you need the statutory auditor needs to test it. The test of controls. So you need tools to test the controls because you cannot do it manually now. It's not possible. Those days are over. So I think slowly, there is adoption of tools for doing that. So I think 50 to 60%. If you just look, I may be wrong. There's no empirical evidence, but 50 to 60% of the work done by a statutory auditor can be done by tools. You can employ tools to do it. If you just run through that checklist, you have a BCA external audit checklist, If you run through the checklist, you can say, and all the data is today available in computers. Aaj manual data kuch bhi nahi hai. Nothing, everything is available in computers. Excel, SAP, Tally. For example, Idea connects to, there's a direct ODBC to Tally. You can just take the ledger in. So, there are other tools also. What I'm saying is, it's just proliferation. So, that's it. So, I think I will not go through my presentation. It's available. It can be put up or you can send it out to people. So, there are case studies on procurement, payroll, accounts payable, accounts receivable, number of instances where you can use analytics to what can go wrong. So, all that has been put up. Maybe it will be shared with all of you. Since Jeff is here only for this week, it makes sense that I give the platform to him and he can show maybe a analytics.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
3 minutes. You can see that and then question it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just gonna type in the path. Yeah, that's okay. Yep. Okay, I'm gonna just go 2 seconds here. Yeah, that's that one. Yeah. What no, it's like the tool versus the idea. Yeah. Okay. Just give me a second here. See what I see here. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to warn you, there's samba music. So, it's going to be a party. Okay, let's see this here. Okay, are we ready? Now, it's going to be very fast-paced, but what the video is basically going to be about is how we're looking at those GL transactions, right? Audit intelligence, artificial intelligence, the whole process from I got my trial balance, I got my transactions, how do I get it into the machine, map out the fields, so you do that just the one time, set your business rules however you like, push a button, you validate that the transactions are right, and then you get all the dashboarding and it figures out where your high risks are and medium risks. Okay, it's going to be some loud. Define what your project is called, prepare the data, validate the data, and you create a risk profile. You engage the client directly, you send a note to them, you request the data, ask them questions, all together. We're going to do more of this in a little more detail. Validation and risk profile is where you set your organizational rules and it picks the right one. Okay, here's the form. They send it to the client, ask them some questions, they drop the data, their transactions right into here. You get the data. Drag and drop the trial balance. Right in. You define your fields and you map, see a trial balance. Here's, for instance, one particular transaction type here. It's a payroll liability. If you need to assign something, you can put it to the right section if you need to, and it maps all the right categories. Same with the transactions, very easy. Drag the transaction, drop. You can map all individual purchase invoices, sales invoices. Whenever you need to. You'd only do this the one time, right? Every day going forward, you don't have to do this anymore. You validate the data. You look for particular integrity issues. And then, if you compare the trial balance to your transaction, it shows you out $1 here. You can comment if there is a difference. Turn here, you set your organizational, they call them influencers. So if you're interested in sales, you can crank up the influencer. So you can say, the sales accounts are higher risk because that's our type of business. And here's your dashboard. If you can figure out how many are high risk, medium risk, low risk. General ledger. Click on an item, drill down, shows you what percentage, shows you how your risk is spread across the year. Are there any particular dates that are interesting? When you click on a transaction, it tells you why it was risky. There's a missing description, it's a rounded amount, it's high amount, there's gaps in the sequence. So it explains why. Why was it risky? Why did it find a problem? You can save the configuration. You can set, if you want to turn on artificial intelligence. There's many algorithms, isolation force. These are all artificial intelligence algorithms. You can run as many, as few as you like. You want to bring it into IDEA, click. Get your data, the results are all the data, download it. You got IDEA going, there's your file, drag it, drop it into IDEA. Just hit next. The definition is always the same, so you just hit next. And now here your data, now you deep drill down, and we did a little character field test, and we found out, oh, there is something called memorabilia and hockey cards. That's interesting. See, we didn't see that on the main screen, but you can see it when you dive deep into IDEA, and then you can do your exceptions. Now, it can be anyone. All right? So you can see the whole process that we can start, use cloud, use desktop, and they all connect together. Drill down, drill up. All right? I think that's it for tonight. With the samba music, you're going to have a step in your beat as you leave. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff and Deepjee. I think so. Your presentation was very fast-paced as the music was, and all of us could relate to it. But just to conclude, I think so. Everybody talks about disruption that the technology will bring, and the artificial intelligence. Everybody feels that yes, it is going to happen, but everybody also feels that it's not going to impact me or it's not going to impact my. So it's going to impact all of our profession. And just to answer her question. You just said whether it's going to make our auditors redundant, but just a reply to that would be, sir, there is a street food here called bhel, it's very famous, where we mix all the chutneys. So just like a burger, you have a fixed menu, but here we are very, like how you said, passionate about so you want more spice, so that the machine is not going to, know that you'll have a human being intervention only, that if you want a little bit of more limbu or chutney in your bill. I always tell my audit team, that it's important to do good work, but it's also important to show that you've done good work, and specifically with all these regulatory requirements and the checks that we are going to have, and the audits on our audits that we are going to have. So I think so these softwares and these audit tools really go a long way in, keeping our paperwork, our, documentation strong. So I think so this is more important. Second thing also I want to also correlate is very apt. Both of you all were on the same platform, that both of you all said that yes, it is going to change the way we are going to do our work, but human intervention will always remain. That always you cannot do without that. And also, sir, our annual plan also has 5 Gs. One of the growth is the EQ growth. So I think so that deals with the human relations and the human touch. So we also rely on that. And lastly, I want to say that just was reading today morning only, somebody just sent me that how technology is changing. There's an article in one of the business standard or some business newspapers wherein IT department has gone, actually Nikunj could relate to this, that IT department have gone and actually traced the WhatsApp calls between a businessman and his chartered accountant, and from there found unearthed investments which were millions of dollars, which were, just on that WhatsApp chat, I think so. They've unearthed this fraud. I think so. This is from us. And before we go on to propose a very formal and well-deserved vote of thanks, Atul Bhai will propose it. I'll just request Suhas to hand over our instant memory. This also is very unique to our society. Today's photograph, today's memory, we give it. So, instant photograph. This is real time. Real time, absolutely. Yeah, this is wonderful. Atul bhai, for the announcements and vote of thanks.
Good evening, friends. I think we are all spellbound with whatever has been said so far, and we are so happy also. But before I propose a well-deserved vote of thanks, I have to say something on a. There may be few newcomers also, so there has been a dedicated internal audit committee in BCA, which has been formed this year. The last year there was a subgroup which was working purely on internal audit. So we have made a special attention. We are focusing more on to internal audit and creating a lot of new areas of learning, sharing, debating. A lot of things have been happening, and this committee had a recent RRC, which was the first of its kind in India. We ever dedicated 2 days outstation visits and a lot of learning, and it was well received also. 81 participants from around 18 cities came and deliberated on a lot of things, and these things will continue also. We have a orientation kind of an IA 101 program where the induction training for the newcomers in an inter-audit department is being given by in a 2-3 days kind of a workshop seminar, and we have articles on internal audit in a journal. We have workshops. Recently, the next coming, we will be having a workshop on report writing also. That is also going to come. So there are a lot of things have been happening. I will request each one of you to focus and get associated with BCA and get updated with what is happening on internal audit. When we talk of, when we think of new ideas in our committee, we think of Nandita Ben. Same way, when we think of an idea as a product, we think of a Deepjee. Similarly, when we think of an Excel, we think of a Nikunj. So Nikunj was one of the, as we said in 2002, first time idea was introduced into a BCA's inter-audit seminar. Nikunj was the one who created a program using Excel as an audit tool in 2002. I still remember he delivering lecture on that. And to continue that thing, he has continued and done a lot of deep diving into Excel. And we are going to have another program with him on 26th and 27th June. So using Excel as an audit tool. So that is going to be a data analysis with an Excel. So those who cannot, like someone said, afford a technology as a cost, there is a free tool available, Excel, and how to use Excel. We cannot have a better person than Nikunj, and we are going to have a good seminar. So I'll request each one of you to send your team members or join in this program. Another program to continue with the same topic. We have another lecture meeting on 26th of February, which is going to be impact of technology on the profession by Nitin Singhal at the same venue. So 26th of February, you just note down the next Wednesday only. So there is going to be means we have to continue thinking and innovating on these ideas and learn a lot from this kind of lectures. So lastly, pleasant task of proposing word of thanks to the speakers. I think as an internal auditor, we are supposed to be keeping a pace with the business and what is happening all around. So whatever has been happening on the business was well said by Mr. Jeff. Like a lot of examples and a lot of thinking and a lot of, we can say there is a vision, okay, what is going to happen, and that is very important for internal auditor to learn. So he took us from the history to a vision. He took us, he showed us the challenges also in how to do the internal audit, means how to use the AI to the solutions also. So not only challenges but the solutions also. He gave a lot of business perspective, he gave audit perspective also. So all and all, I can say, summarize that whatever we want to know about the AI, whatever we want to know about the IA, and whatever we want to know about the business, everything was well conceptualized and well presented to all of us. So I request all of one to propose a very, very well-deserved vote of thanks to him. And very difficult task when we go to an audit committee with a preparation of 30 minutes presentation, and that audit committee members telling this is, we have 5 minutes only and we will not give more time. Same was done by Deepjee, very well presented in 5 minutes, whatever was to be said in 30 minutes. So I request, that is also yeah, he was at Hardik Pandya. He was sent in the 19th over कि भाई अभी 2 over बाकी और 20 run खेल रहे. So yeah, so that is how Deepjee is always our Hardik Pandya. He is always a Virat Kohli, and he is also very close to BCA, and is means very open to share also, and we have learned a lot from him also. So definitely we are thankful to Deepjee also being with us, and not only in giving the presentation but bringing a right speaker to share a lot of information, lot of knowledge, and giving a lot of vision to all of us. So on behalf of everyone, we appreciate the effort. Thank you and see you again.